But ultimately, I think somebody said the other day, I am president, I am not king. I can't do these things just by myself. We have a system of government that requires the Congress to work with the executive branch to make it happen. I'm committed to making it happen, but I've got to have some partners to do it.
Pick up a dictionary, flip through the pages. Tyrant, noun, a ruler who has complete power over a country and who is cruel and unfair, someone who uses power in a cruel and unfair way. Full definition of tyrant, 1A, an absolute ruler, unrestrained by law or constitution. B, a usurper of sovereignty. Everything we told you about the Constitution protecting your Second Amendment freedoms is now in question. So I've taken the liberty to rewrite Barack Obama's immigration speech from Thursday using his own words, inserting gun control in place of immigration. Take a listen. My fellow Americans, tonight I'd like to talk with you about gun control. For more than 200 years, our right to bear arms has given us a tremendous advantage over other nations. It's kept us youthful, dynamic, and entrepreneurial, and more importantly, free. It has shaped our character as a people with limitless possibilities. But today our background check system is broken, and 90% of you know it. Law-abiding gun owners playing by the rules watch others flout the rules. Gun shop owners offer their products under the watchful eye of the BATF and their instant background check system, only to watch 40% of gun sales go unchecked. All of us take offense to anyone who reaps the rewards of gun ownership in America without taking on the responsibilities of getting a background check and paying their fair share. It's been this way for decades, and for decades we haven't done much about it. When I took office, I committed to fixing this broken and weak background check system, and I began by doing what I could to exploit the tragic murders at Sandy Hook. Today, we have more ATF agents, technology, and regulation deployed to secure our nation's privately owned gun dealers than at any time in our history. And over the past 6 years, largely due to me, civilian gun ownership is at historic highs, while violent crime continues to drop to record low levels. But that's not good enough. We can do more. We owe it to our children if we can save one life. Although this summer there was a brief spike in certain violent crimes, the number of such crimes is actually lower than it's been in nearly 20 years. Those are the facts. Meanwhile, I worked with Congress on a comprehensive fix to this problem immediately after Newtown. However, a dysfunctional Congress, led, of course, by Republicans, who take their marching orders from the NRA and the gun lobby extremists, failed to enact my common sense proposals to create a universal background check system that 90% of Americans, including 60% of NRA members, approve of. It wasn't perfect. It was a compromise, but it reflected common sense proposals that would save lives and keep dangerous weapons out of the hands of otherwise law-abiding citizens who have no actual use for such firepower. It would have doubled the number of ATF agents while giving undocumented gun owners a pathway to legal gun ownership. And independent experts like Jonathan Gruber said that it would help grow our economy and shrink our deficits. Had the House of Representatives, led by Republicans, worked with the Senate in bipartisan fashion to craft a common-sense bill that allows you to keep your gun rights and acted simple common-sense background measures, I would have signed it into law, and my actions today would be unnecessary. But for a year and a half now, Republican leaders in the House have refused to allow that simple vote. Now I continue to believe that the best way to solve this problem is by working together to pass that kind of common sense gun control that 90% of you have told me you want. But until that happens, there are actions I have the legal authority to take as president. The same kinds of actions taken by Democratic and Republican presidents before me that will help make our firearm laws and background check system more fair and more just. Tonight I'm announcing those actions. First, we'll build on our progress at the ATF with additional resources for our law enforcement personnel so that they can continue to stem the flow of guns into our communities, our cities, our towns, our schools, and our shopping malls. Second, I'll make it harder for just anyone to buy a gun. And while it might be an inconvenience to those of you who insist on continuing to buy guns, I think paying fees and taxes for your privilege to bear arms is only fair. Those of you who are honest with yourselves agree with me. I know you do. I heard your vote, and I heard those who didn't vote. Third, we'll take steps to deal responsibly with the millions of gun owners who we expect will not comply with my executive order. I want to say more about this third issue because it generates the most passion and controversy. Even as we are a nation awash in firearms ownership, we are still a nation of laws. Undocumented owners of guns, the 40% of those who currently do not get background checks, I believe that they must be held accountable, especially those who may be dangerous. Over the past 6 years, tens of thousands of people were stopped trying to buy guns due to our current background check system. While only 42 of them were prosecuted by my Attorney General Eric Holder, a man who continues to receive my fullest support, we know we can do better. We'll prioritize just like law enforcement does every day. You may be asking why it appears I'm focusing on law-abiding gun owners. Some of you are asking why I don't go after criminals. The cold hard fact is that every honest American knows that every criminal or murderer started as a law-abiding citizen until they murdered someone with a gun, or robbed that family's liquor store, or shot up a school for the first time. It starts here with you, and fair Americans agree with me. But even as we focus on law-abiding citizens, the fact is millions of gun owners in every state of every race and nationality are still just that, law-abiding gun owners. I understand that, and to you I say you have nothing to fear. If you like your guns, you can keep your guns. I'm not going to take away your guns. And let's be honest, tracking down, rounding up, and deporting millions of gun owners isn't realistic. Anyone who suggests otherwise isn't being straight with you. It's also not who we are as Americans. After all, most of these gun owners have been here a long time. They work hard in tough, low-paying jobs. They support their families. They worship at our churches, and their hopes, dreams, and patriotism are just like mine. As my predecessor, President Bush, once put it, they are part of American life. Now, here is the thing. We expect people who own guns to play by the rules, so we're going to offer the following deal. If you're a gun owner more than 5 years, if you register, pass a criminal background check, and you're willing to pay your fair share of taxes, you'll be able to apply to keep your guns. You can come out of the shadows and get right with me. That's what the deal is. Now let's be clear about what it isn't. This deal does not take your guns away. It only makes it a little more inconvenient for you to obtain one after I sign this order. And any law-abiding gun owner, in fact 90% of you, told me you agree with the common sense measures I'm outlining here tonight. I know some of the critics of the action call my proposal an attack on your constitutional rights. Well, it's not. I'm still letting you have your right to bear arms. I'm simply keeping my promise to the gun control lobby and initiating common sense background checks. What I'm describing is accountability, a common sense middle ground approach. If you meet the criteria, you can keep your guns and even buy a new one once in a while. That's okay with me. And to those members of Congress who question my authority to make our background check system work better, or question the wisdom of me acting where Congress has failed, I have but one answer. Pass a universal background check bill, and that day I will sign that bill into law. The actions I take will no longer be necessary. Millions of you go back generations in this country with ancestors who own firearms for hunting or sport. I know some worry that universal background checks will change the very fabric of who we are, or stick it to law-abiding gun owners. Millions of you who feel you've gotten a raw deal already by paying for the actions of criminals who misuse guns. I hear those concerns, but that's not what these steps would do. Because for all the back and forth in Washington, we have to remember that this debate is about something bigger. It's about who we are as a country and who we want to be for future generations. Are we a nation that tolerates the hypocrisy of someone that lets 40% of gun owners go buy guns without a background check? Look, I know the politics of this are tough, but let me tell you why I have come to feel so strongly about it. Over the years, I've seen the determination of gun owners who work 2 or 3 jobs without taking a dime from the government, who think they need a gun to keep their family safe rather than the police. I've seen the heartbreak and anxiety of mothers who have lost their children to criminal gun violence, and I say to that mother, I feel you and I hear you as a father myself. There is more we can do. And if we can save just one child, we have done our jobs, and I have done what I came here to do, to act when Congress will not. I look forward to signing this lawful executive order. If he were talking about gun control rather than immigration, the tyrant is protecting millions of lawbreakers who violated our nation's laws to come here. A slap in the face to the millions who are either going through the process, are waiting to go through the process, or went through the process legally. But it changed everything, didn't it? Changed everything. Because the question now is, what stops him from reading to you what I just read to you? I want you to take a listen. This is from the presidential debate, October 16th in 2012. It says a quote from the tyrant. We're a nation that believes in the Second Amendment, and I believe in the Second Amendment. Remember that? Laughable. He went on, we've got a long tradition of hunting and sportsmen and people who want to make sure they can protect themselves. My belief is that we have to enforce the laws we've already got. Make sure that we're keeping guns out of the hands of criminals, those who are mentally ill. We've done a much better job in terms of background checks, but we've got more to do. That was in 2012. Background checks. Remember that little two-word phrase, background checks. Background checks in Washington State. February 2013, State of the Union. Barack Obama, the tyrant. It has been 2 months since Newtown, he said during the State of the Union in February 2013. This is not the first time this country has debated how to reduce gun violence. But this time is different. Overwhelming majorities of Americans, he said, Americans who believe in the Second Amendment, have come together around common sense reform, like background checks. February 2013. Background checks, he says. Background checks. State of the Union Address, January 28th, 2014, this year. I've seen the courage of parents, students, pastors, and police officers all over this country who say, we're not afraid, and I intend to keep trying, with or without Congress, to help stop more tragedies from visiting innocent Americans in our movie theaters, shopping malls, schools, like Sandy Hook. And I intend to keep trying, he said, with or without Congress. 2008, Philadelphia primary debate, April 16th. This was April 16th, 2008. I think we can provide common sense approaches to the issues of illegal guns that are ending up on the streets. We can make sure that criminals don't have guns in their hands. We can trace guns that have been used in crimes. How do you trace guns? How does one trace guns? Background checks, they say, are not de facto registration. Right, Washington State? When a U.S. senator, the tyrant, spoke and was asked frequently about licensing and registration. Do you remember that? January 15, 2008, the Democratic debate in Las Vegas. He was asked if he would do that as president. He said, I don't think we can get that done. Of course, he said the same thing about immigration, too, didn't he? Yeah. I want you to keep this in mind. I don't think we can get that done, he said, but what we can do is to provide just some common sense enforcement, he said. As president, I intend to make it happen. You've got the tradition, he said, of lawful gun ownership. Tradition of lawful gun ownership. It is very important for many Americans to be able to hunt, fish, take their kids out, teach them how to shoot. Then you've got the reality of 34 Chicago public school students who get shot down on the streets of Chicago. He continued, we can reconcile those two realities by making sure the Second Amendment is respected and that people are able to lawfully own guns. Well, aren't you glad he will make it okay for you? He also said, in June this year, the American tyrant was asked a question about school shootings, maybe those 74 since Newtown that have been debunked, that they still have on their webpage, by the way. I'm talking about Every Town for Gun Safety liars, crack liars they are. But the American tyrant was asked about that, and he vowed to continue to fight for common sense legislation. He urged gun control advocates to get as organized and well-financed as the National Rifle Association. That was in June of this year. Here's his quote. Honestly, he said, this is not going to change unless the people who want to prevent these kinds of mass shootings from taking place feel at least as passionate, at least as mobilized and well-funded as the National Rifle Association and the gun manufacturers are. Because the politics in Congress, he said, are such where even members of Congress who know better are fearful if they vote their conscience and support common sense measures like background checks. Background checks. There's those two words again. They're worried they're going to lose. That was from a town hall meeting in Minneapolis. Those quotes were compiled by Newsmax, so I thank them for making them easy to find, because they offer, in hindsight, a chilling look now that we've seen the American president become a tyrant. These quotes take on new meaning, don't they, when a lawless president becomes a tyrant and decides unto himself, unilaterally, that he can make law. So I ask you this question. Sounds to me like Barack Obama didn't like waiting around for Congress to act. He said he was tired of waiting. He said the same thing about gun control and background checks, too, didn't he? Because now it's up to you. You are the only thing, the only one, who can change things. It rests squarely on your head. 100 million estimated gun owners in America. I believe the number's probably closer to 125 million. Because I know I wouldn't answer their questions. I'd hang up in their face or slam my door in their face if they stopped by and asked me how many guns I owned. And I believe many gun owners would do the same without answering that question. So I believe the number is higher. I believe that's fair to say. But let's just stick with their number. Let's stick with 100 million gun owners. 5 million NRA members? 5 million NRA members? 100 million gun owners? Do the math. Are you kidding me? We have a man who ignores the will of the people blatantly a week after he and his agenda are shoved in the cesspool of progressive liberalism down the toilet with the unmitigated gall to stand up in front of the American people and flip them off, because that's exactly what he did. He's a liar and a tyrant. I'm just using that definition. A ruler unrestrained by law or constitution. Well, don't forget absolute. Apparently he believes he is. He believes he can write law. But he says he doesn't. So it's okay. So it doesn't matter because, you don't agree with me. You're wrong. I'm right. Agree with me. That's compromise. Gun Owners of America. Larry Pratt's going to be here in the next hour. Can't wait for this conversation because he tells it like it is. But their membership is in the hundreds of thousands. It should be in the millions. Second Amendment Foundation, fighting in the nation's courts every day for our freedoms. You hear Alan Gottlieb, their founder, and the founder of the CCRKBA, Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms, also on this program as a regular contributor every couple weeks. He just went through the background check fight, epic battle in Washington State. He's dedicated his life to it. What have you done? You a chat room warrior? You sit in a computer, you sit there on a screen, and your part of fighting the fight is your 15,170th message that signed Molan Labe? Is that what you believe is fighting? What's to stop him from moving on gun control in the exact same fashion he moved on immigration? What? The very heart, core, and soul of this republic has just been seized, and that's the separation of powers. Basically, Congress writes law, and the president signs or vetoes it. That's the way it works. Not anymore. So what are you going to do about it? Because let me tell you something. Being the chat room warrior ain't going to cut it anymore. You need to get off your duff now, today, and do something about it. You got $25 laying around? Join an organization with it that's fighting for your freedoms and your rights. Here's the deal. Michael Bloomberg has pledged $50 million of his money, and he succeeded in Washington State. Nevada is next. Arizona's next. Let me tell you what the mandate is, or what they're going to use as a mandate. They're going to pass through initiatives on ballots in a number of states the background check, just like they did in Washington. I want you heard this last week, you heard it the week before, but it was before power was seized by the American tyrant, an in-your-face power grab. The game has changed. It's different today. Because now I can predict for you, now we can see it a little clearer, can't we? That Barack Obama will now politicize this issue again and use it. And I will submit to you right here on Armed American Radio today that I believe 2 or 3 states, maybe one, might not even take that. We may just use Washington. But Barack Obama will use this as a tool to embarrass the Republicans like he did with immigration.
¿De dónde eres usted, primero?
El Salvador.
¿También?
México.
México, ¿de dónde en México?
Puebla. Guatemala.
Guatemala también?
Guatemala.
We're recruiting and training Latino organizers.
The antiquated immigration system needs to be changed.
We will transform this nation.
We can have a new understanding. You can have stations in the border states. A station in each state.
¿Qué porcentaje de gente en México quieren volver a América?
Es el 80%, el 90%. No.
Apoyo a Obama, ¿por qué?
Por el plan de salud.
¡Viva Obama! ¡Viva Obama! Y este plan de salud. I'm going to march with you every step of the way to make sure that we are welcoming every striving immigrant who sees America the same way we do.
¿Por qué no te quedas y trabajar en tu propio país?
Porque el problema de que no puedo quedarme en mi país es por el sistema del socialismo.
They're being used by our socialists to destroy this country as well. The difference between today's socialists and Marxists in the Democrat Party and the Marxists from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s is back then they would look you in the eye and say, we're going to destroy you, we're going to destroy America. Now they look you in the eye and say, we want to help poor people. and then they do the same thing. The
They go,
agenda's
oh,
the
it's
same.
children, when only something like 17% are under 18. And the illegals that are coming have huge criminal records. They can get fake identities. How do you become a new person? You don't have to change your identity or anything. You just come to the U.S. and be whoever you want. Kill as many people as you want. Do whatever you want.
Well, here in California, for example, 50% of the prison population are illegals. We have the Nortes, the Sedeños, different criminal gangs. The people coming over the border are not people that see America the same way we do. They're people with completely different agendas, and Obama is lying to everybody with a very evil plan.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to see how well we do in this election. And I think a lot of it is going to depend on whether we still have some support, not only from Democrats, but also Republicans, but they're going to be paying attention to this election. And if Latinos sit out the election, instead of saying we're going to punish our enemies and we're going to reward our friends who stand with us on issues that are important to us.
My name is Jamil Shaw. My son, Jamil Andre Shaw II, was murdered by a dreamer, DACA recipient, a child brought to this country by no fault of his own. My family's peace and freedom were stolen by an illegal alien from Mexico. He was brought here by his illegal alien parents and allowed to grow up as a wild animal. Some people believe that if you are brought over by no fault of your own, that it makes you a good person. They want us to believe that DREAM Act kids don't murder. I am here to debunk that myth. Kids brought over the border by no fault of their own do kill Americans. How many Americans killed by illegal aliens are too many? 1, 2, 100, 1,000, 100,000? Ask any parent whose child was murdered by an illegal alien how many is too many. As one of those parents, I am here to tell you that 1 is too many. My son, Jamil Shaw II, was murdered while walking on his own street, 3 houses down from his home. An illegal alien on his 3rd gun charge was visiting a neighbor when my son was coming home. He shot my son in the stomach and then in the head, killing him. Do black lives really matter, or does it matter only if you are shot by a white person or a white policeman? The district attorney proved in court that my son was murdered because he was black and wearing a Spider-Man backpack. Jamil's mother, Army Sergeant Nita Shaw, who was serving in Iraq fighting for their freedom, called me from Iraq to ask, was it true that Jazz was dead? And Jazz is the name we call our son, his nickname. How many other military families have made that same phone call from some foreign land in disbelief that their sons or daughters have been killed in America by illegal alien invaders? Do military families matter? DREAM Act kids have turned my family's American dream into a nightmare. The illegal alien dreamer that murdered my son only served 4 months of an 8-month sentence for assault with a deadly weapon and battery on a police officer. He was released from the county jail the day before he executed my son. Why was this violent illegal alien allowed to walk the streets of America instead of being deported? Why was ICE not called to pick up this violent invader? We were promised that the federal government would keep us safe from violent illegal aliens. Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution guarantees us protection against invasion. I see and hear black politicians, black athletes, black stars say, hands up, don't shoot. My son was shot in the head by an illegal alien gangbanger while he lay on his back with his hands up. He still shot him through his hand into his head and killed him. My son thought he could walk down the street and not be murdered by an illegal alien, that he could depend on the government to secure our borders and keep the bad people out. Yes, black families matter. Yes, military families matter. All families matter. But the duty of the U.S. government is to always put American families first. Honorable Chairman, I had a different name, I'm sorry. Honorable Chairman, Ranking Member, today's hearing was called to review the Department of Homeland Security's policies and procedures for the apprehension and detention and release of non-citizens unlawfully present in the United States. In his November 20th, 2014 speech to the nation on immigration, President Obama said, "If you are a criminal, you'll be deported. If you plan to enter the U.S. illegally, your chances of getting caught and sent back just went up." The president said he wanted to work with both parties to pass a more permanent legislative solution. The president also said, "And to those members of Congress who question my authority to make our immigration system work better or question the wisdom of me acting where Congress has failed, I have one answer: pass a bill." In 3 of the past 4 Congresses, Representative Walter Jones has introduced the Legal Alien Crime Reporting Act, which would address many of the issues this hearing was called to discuss, but could never get a hearing. In the 113th Congress, Representative Jones renamed the bill after my son, H.R. 1888, the Jamil Shaw Jr. Memorial Act of 2013. Never got a hearing. As we sit here today, I offer for consideration H.R. 1041, Jamil Shaw II Memorial Act of 2015. It is only 2 pages long, but chops at the root of the problem. Until the FBI is allowed to track and report illegal alien crime, it is doubtful that the American people will understand how severe the problem of violent illegal alien crime is. I doubt any 10 people would define comprehensive immigration reform the same way. But I can assure you that what we really need is comprehensive immigration enforcement, secure borders and ports of entry, and the oversight of Congress is to ensure that America and American families are job one.